Welcome to the show. This is In Conversation. I'm Boo Prince. You've got Ashdown Radio and my guest in the studio this evening, Jill Wedge. Now, many of you will know Jill. You will have seen her at some of the fabulous pop-up markets that she runs in both Crowborough and Uckfield. And of course, Jill is actually the founder of the Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets. So we thought it was a great opportunity to get her in to not only share with us a little bit of her story and how she founded the Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets, but also to inspire you, because I know that there are so many people out there who sit in their homes doing all kinds of crafts, whether it's beautiful painting, knitting, cooking amazing things, sewing, mosaic, whatever it is, jewelry making, etc. And there'll be some of your friends who say, "Oh, you could sell that. That's fabulous." But you never do it. And yet you're probably sitting there thinking, the cost of living is really killing me. So today is your day. Jill Wedge is here and she is going to help us understand how to monetize your craft and how to start that side hustle. Jill, welcome to the studio. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Jill, I know that you actually have a background as a journalist and a communications expert. How on earth does one go from that to pop-up markets?
Nothing to do with markets whatsoever, yeah. So I started out as a journalist, worked in local newspapers, pretty much because I was good at English at school. And anybody that knows me now will not believe how painfully shy I was as a child. Absolutely crippling shyness. But becoming a journalist helped me get over that because I was out talking to people every day. In those days, you did a NCTJ course, which was basically almost like a sort of foundation course in journalism. There were only 5 locations in the country that allowed you to study journalism. And you got a newspaper job on the back of it. So you were 19, you were young, cub reporter, sent out into the field, had to find stories. I had 4 pages I had to fill every week on the newspaper that I first got a job at. So yeah, that's my background, journalism. And I then moved into PR and the more of the corporate world and found myself working for the majority of my career in corporate communications.
So it's a really interesting feeling because I also come from a journalistic background, and right in those early days of your career, it feels like a school project, doesn't it? When you say I've got 4 pages I need to fill, how am I going to make this interesting? How am I going to get good marks? And good marks in journalism means lots of people read your stuff.
Yeah.
So do you remember some of those early days, some of the kind of crazy or most difficult stories that you did?
Yeah, you would do anything from the fates and events that were, my patch was just kind of outside Maidenhead. It was Bourne End, Woburn Green, Marlow, which is a quite famous town, Blackwell Heath, all around there. And I would have to cover all the fates and events and calendar and diary dates that happened in that area, but also ferret out other stories, the more human interest stories. So I had a few calls that I would make every week. I'd go out. Newspapers don't do this anymore. They don't have the staff to do it. But we would go out and meet with people in our community. And I had a white witch in Bray. Bray was my very first patch. And I used to have to go and see a white witch who actually also ran a swan sanctuary.
Yes.
On the Thames.
Brilliant.
So lots of quirky stories came out of that era. But there were also lots of celebrities that lived in Maidenhead in those days as well. So celebrities whose names you can't really mention now for various reasons. But one of my very early interviews was, and this is a good one, not a bad one, Michael Parkinson.
Oh, wow.
Guy, who was campaigning for the local hospital not to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had those kind of stories, but then I would also have, I remember a story about, I'd never come across dyslexia. This is the early 80s. Never come across dyslexia. And a local woman wrote a book about her son. And it was called The Grass is Always Moving, because that's how through his eyes, that's how he saw the world. It was constantly moving. So there were things that I now remember and probably bring into, that still live with me.
Sure.
I had to go and knock on doors and ask parents to talk about their children who'd died in car accidents. you covered everything, absolutely everything, from the good, the bad, and the indifferent.
I always think that one of it can, as you say, be difficult. But I think one of the very best things about a career in journalism is that it gives you such incredible insight into people's real lives. It's like, it's hard to lose touch with humanity when you are literally sitting in somebody's home talking about whatever has happened to them. And like you say, it could be something tragic, or it could be, that they've won the lotto, but there's something so human about it. And it's tragic in so many ways that we kind of don't have that level of local journalism anymore.
No, and it's purely because people aren't buying newspapers in the way they used to. They're getting their news from lots of different ways, including the radio, but obviously that's always been here, but much more on social media now. So local newspapers aren't funded in the way they were. We had a massive staff, and it was a very, very healthy newspaper with lots and lots of local advertising, and that's what kept it afloat. So we could go out. I mean, we would go out of an evening and cover all the council meetings, even the parish council meetings we would cover. You'd never get newspapers doing that now. So I understood what was going on in the community from a very, very grassroots level upwards. So, one day I'd be talking to somebody that was, I'm a parish councillor, the next day a CEO, the next day a mum.
Yeah.
And it gives you such a great grounding, not only in identifying a story, translating a story into a way that people will understand it or want to read it, because you're pulling out the most interesting aspects of what somebody's telling you about. But as you say, meeting people, reading them, understanding where they're coming from, getting your information from them that you need in a quick way, making sure they're happy, because you don't want to leave them feeling unhappy. But one of the best things it gave me was a contacts book, and was the idea that every single person you met would be useful to you in some way, or you would be useful to them. And that has been a lifelong positive for me, is wherever I've gone, whatever job I've done, I've always managed to build up my contacts. So I always know where to go to for something, or I need to go to for help, or putting two people together as well that can be useful to each other.
I love that. And like you say, the network, this extraordinary network, because and we have talked about networking on this show before, but I think the way that people sort of think about networking these days is almost kind of like business speed dating. But there is something about being a journalist and spending time really getting to know people and getting to know their story that gives you a much deeper connection. It's not that almost kind of superficial, would you be a client or would I be your client type of networking speed dating feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not as kind of superficial and clinical as people maybe think it is. It's more about the depth of the relationship. Yeah. And some people you meet are not going to be of great, you're not going to be great benefit to each other instantly there and then, but it might be down the line. You're forging those relationships and building on them for the future.
Totally.
And it's very important, whatever walk of life you're in, do not underestimate the power of networking, or just building up those relationships. You don't even have to give it a label. Just build up those relationships.
Totally. So Jill, we were talking about how do you go from that to pop-up markets? Just join the dots for me then.
Yeah, so I was in my corporate career for many, many years, either working in-house or working as a freelancer. I ran my own agency, my own communications agency for a while, had lots and lots of clients, again, through the strength of networking. Most of my business came to me by word of mouth recommendations, so I knew the power of word of mouth recommendations. And then when my son was small, I was really looking to find ways to have additional incomes. So I wasn't reliant on big contracts in London that really wanted you there, 7 days a week, working every hour that was sent your way. So the first thing I did was I started, I hate the term side hustle. I really hate that term.
Why?
Because of the word hustle. I think it has negative connotations. It's an Americanism that we've borrowed from there. from their language, and I think people reject it because it sounds like you are. It's something harsh and abrasive. And I don't know what to use instead, but I don't like side hustle. So kind of like side businesses, income portfolio. I like to say
an income portfolio.
Income portfolio.
Removing some of your eggs from that one basket. Spreading the load into perhaps a smaller basket.
And anybody can do that. Anybody can do that in a variety of different ways. And maybe there are some listeners out there that are already doing it. So I started, the very first thing I did was Usborne Books, realised that I couldn't continue that with a 6-month-old baby because they were too heavy. That was the simple reason I stopped trying to sell Usborne Books. I think they're fantastic. And then tried some other businesses alongside my day job. And I realised kind of after COVID that there were lots of markets that you could attend, but they were either craft markets or farmers markets, and nothing really for those businesses that didn't fall into those buckets, that didn't fall into those descriptions. So I thought, can't beat them, do your own thing. So, which is sort of a lifelong mantra of mine. If it doesn't exist, I'll set it up. So I set up, with the help of some other stallholders, a very small market 5 years ago this month, in Bartrend, in Crowborough High Street. There were 8 of us. Went down a storm. It was very well attended, and we realised pretty quickly there was an appetite for a generalist market, and we moved quickly into the social club, I think the following month or the month after, and we were in the social club in Crowborough for about a year, where we grew and grew and grew and grew, and very quickly outgrew the social club. And then we'd been in existence for about 12 months when the community centre sort of welcomed us with open arms. And we've been there, as I say, for the last 4 years.
Okay, well, brilliant. And I know that the Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets are very well attended, and people really, really look forward to them. And maybe there's also slightly an element of, because they're not kind of permanent shops, there's a sense of anticipation, like, what am I going to get there? What am I going to find that's different or new? My guest in the studio, Jill Wedge, we are talking pop-up markets. We are talking about, I won't say side hustle, we're talking about additional income streams, especially for people who make things or have some other interests aside from their regular day job. How do you get into it? What do you make? What sells? What marketing routes do you need to go? We're going to explore all of these things. And as we always do on this show, it's time for Jill to give us her first song, to intro it and tell us why she chose this one.
I absolutely adored and still adore the Smiths. So as a teenager in the 80s, they really represented that alternative music scene that I was into. I wasn't a very mainstream kid, and loved the Smiths. I don't think they get critical acclaim. I don't think they get the sort of the populist acclaim these days, or the airtime that they deserve.
Okay, so we're playing
How Soon Is Now.
Here it is. Welcome back. Well, my guest in the studio this hour is Jill Wedge. Jill is a local Crowboroughite, and she is the founder of the Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets. We've been talking a little bit about her journey from being a journalist and working in corporate communications to actually setting up these pop-up markets. And Jill, it's such an interesting thing, because I think there are so many people who have some form of creative endeavor, hobby that they enjoy outside of their working life. And inevitably there's someone who rocks up and says to them, wow, that's fabulous. You could sell it. And 9 times out of 10, people either feel like it's not good enough, or it might be too much hassle to make it at scale. Or tell me a little bit about that, because I think that's a journey for so many people.
I think you're absolutely right. It's so interesting. It's like anything. When you start looking into a topic, you realise how many people are involved in it. There is an enormous population of crafters and artistic people in this area. And the majority of people probably aren't aware of it. But a lot, and the majority of them are women, I have to say, have some kind of hobby or something they do as a sideline or just in the evenings to relax, or always have done it. And it might be crochet, knitting, sewing, painting, anything like that brings them pleasure. But some of them do it to an extraordinarily high degree of professionalism, but they don't have the confidence. They don't see it within themselves as something that somebody else might want to pay money for. They might make things for their family or friends, or give them away, or do it for charity quite often, but not something that they might be able to make some money from. Because a lot of us women suffer from imposter syndrome. So not just women, men too, but I think it is a particularly female trait. We don't think we are good enough, or what we do is good enough. We look at the next person and compare ourselves constantly. But I've met, I've got a database now of about 350 people that have been stall holders at the markets. And a lot of those make their own things to sell. But some will say to me, I'm not sure whether this is good enough. And I look at it and it's incredible.
Right. I'm also always fascinated by how many people are crafters. There's something just kind of innate inside us that drives us to make and create and express ourselves. And actually, craft is an incredible way to see the personality and the inner world and inner life of another human being. And sharing your craft is a way of somehow sharing your personality, isn't it?
Well, making has become very popular. It's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I think during lockdown, a lot of people took up baking, for example, which in itself is creative, and making, because they couldn't go out and socialise. Yeah. Making things and craft is very therapeutic, and people do it to relax. So they do it as their own kind of form of therapy. But a lot of people realise that they can actually make some money out of it. The thing I would suggest to you is, just because you enjoy it doesn't necessarily mean it's commercial.
Yes.
So if you are producing something, it's all well and good if your family say, that's a lovely little crocheted monkey that you made there. Go and compare. I've just said don't compare yourself, haven't I? But I mean, go out and see what other people are selling in the world of crochet. Crocheting and knitting has become very, very popular. I could fill the hall with crocheters and knitters. But have a look and see what other people are doing, and don't do it. Do something else, because you don't want to be selling exactly the same thing as everyone else is selling.
Totally.
So if you crochet, try and find something that's uniquely you. And it might be something that nobody's crocheted before, or it might be something that nobody's crocheted in the same way, or it might be something that you make bigger and better. You don't have to fill your stall with exactly the same things either. You can have a variety of different things. So you might crochet very small little gifts or key rings, but you also might crochet some huge stuffed toys.
Right.
That's fine. It doesn't have to be lots and lots of the same thing. You also don't need to make that much, because with something that's creative, you can take commissions.
Okay, so you are now touching on, I mean, you're so brilliant, Jill, but I was like, I don't even need to actually ask you these things, but you are answering, I mean, precisely what I guess all of our questions are, because I mean, I love making stuff and whatever, but I also think to myself, well, if I was to actually go to a pop-up market to sell things, I couldn't really pitch up with kind of 2 items. I mean, you need to kind of fill your stall a little bit, and
you probably don't need
people...
to fill it as much as you think.
Okay.
Particularly if you are taking commissions, and a lot of makers will. If you sew children's clothes, or if you knit hats. If somebody came to you and said, I love that bobble hat, but I want it in blue. Of course, you're going to accept that offer to make that bobble hat in blue. So, you can also think of your wares as samples. It's a lot easier if you have something that you can hand over for cash there and then, of course. But don't reject the idea of taking commissions from people. It might mean a little bit of extra work for you, because you've got to have it done by a certain time and you've got to go and deliver it. But it also means the word of mouth recommendations that I spoke so highly of before go that one step further for you, and people will say.
The other thing about it is it's a guaranteed client.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to say, well, I have, sewn whatever this thing is, a placemat or something, in the hope that somebody else has the same taste as me. It's a completely different thing when someone gives you a commission and you know that that's a guaranteed sale.
Yeah. And you might not want to do commissions. You might just want to do your own creative thing and express yourself in the hope that somebody's going to buy it. A lot of artists work like that. You know, they don't all take commissions. One thing I would recommend to people, though, is whatever you are taking, because I've learnt this the hard way, whatever you're ordering for somebody else or you are taking a commission on, get your payment up front.
Yes.
Take your payment up front. If they seriously want it, they will be happy to hand over you that £12, £20 or whatever it is there and then.
So there's so much that we need to talk about here. You know, I still want to talk about, like you mentioning payment there. I'd like to touch on that and how do people know how to price things and the best marketing routes and all that. But before I get to that, I want to hear something about your story in terms of when you decided to set up Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets. What were you selling and making?
Then I wasn't making anything. Interestingly enough, I'm not a maker, which is why I was looking for an outlet. So I was actually selling Body Shop at home.
Okay.
So some of you listening may know that Body Shop, and that's how some of you may know me, is through Body Shop at home. So Body Shop went through a bit of a crisis, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, and the administrators came in. They dropped the Body Shop at home part of the business. They salvaged the stores part of the business. They had a management buyout, I think, but they've never resurrected the Body Shop at home. So it was the same products you could buy in the stores. It was just through a local representative.
Right.
So it was a way of saying, I might be able to get this product a little bit more inexpensively. I can get some personalised recommendations about what would suit my skin. I could get, maybe 2 for the price of 1, whatever it might be. There's always an advantage from buying from a local rep.
Or also in some cases, I mean, before, ordering online became so ubiquitous, people would also be able to access products that they might not be able to get because maybe there wasn't a store in the area at that time.
Also with the Body Shop in particular, we had access to products that you couldn't get in stores or online. So we had our own lines. And they would often, nearly always, launch products with us and test the water. Because we, as a network of representatives selling, were more financially successful. This is why it's such a sting that it was shut down. We were more financially successful than the online business.
Wow. That's really telling you something. And
the
doesn't
power of word of mouth recommendations.
Well, and also just face to face.
Yeah, face to face. Supporting, and in women supporting women. This is why Anita Roddick set up Body Shop at Home. For those of you that know the history of the Body Shop, it was set up in the 1970s by a fantastic woman called Anita Roddick, who is no longer with us. And her idea was to, I don't know why I'm promoting the Body Shop here, but her idea with the Body Shop at Home was to enable women to get their own income. She met women in refuges who said, I would have left my husband earlier, but I had no money. So this was a way of empowering women who were stuck at home with children, didn't have access to employment at that point in time, and they could make some money. And if you think about all of those network marketing businesses, they weren't called that then. They were called party plan businesses. Sure. You had Tupperware, which I also used to sell. Mary Kay. There were a lot. But this was a UK-based organisation, not an American one. So it did become very, very successful in its 25 years.
But now, Jill, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And so what I'm seeing is we've changed a lot of the models of how we buy things. People do order stuff online all the time. And yet, these days, women are still in the same situation. We still have this circumstance where, one salary is typically not enough. The cost of living crisis has hit absolutely everyone. Everyone needs to make a little bit more money, but we still have to look after our kids and fetch them from school and do all the rest of it. So that core need remains. And perhaps what we need to be considering is that as much as online ordering has become ubiquitous and people can get absolutely anything from anywhere in the world, there's something inside us emotionally that doesn't want to. There's something that actually I want to get something that has been handmade and that has poured somebody's creativity and love and spirit into it. Am I fantasizing, or do you think that that's
very
true?
Very much so. I think you're absolutely spot on. And there is a proportion of society that do not shop online, either because they have never adopted technology and they will come to our markets, so the older generation, or they're suspicious of buying online because they don't know what they're getting.
Right.
And when you've got art and creativity, creative, makes, you want to be able to see it. You don't necessarily want to buy online. Some people sell very successfully over things like Etsy.
Right.
And people will buy. One of the things I'm proudest about with the pop-up markets, though, is it is a community event. We have a pop-up cafe as well, and we will get repeat customers who come again and again and again for the friendliness of the stallholders. We are an exceptionally friendly bunch, and there are stallholders that are still coming to the markets, setting up their stall, selling their wares, that were there at the very first one 5 years ago.
Wow.
So we have lots and lots of regulars. We have lots and lots of regular customers, and people come and their friendships have been forged, and they like to talk to people. They know what they're getting in terms of the quality and the uniqueness of the products. And they enjoy the whole experience, and then they have a coffee and a cake and a cheese scone. And sometimes we have entertainment. So we'll have rock choir or other choirs, or we'll have dance schools. We'll have kids, who in dance school to come and do something on the fantastic stage at the community centre in Crowborough,
it's brilliant.
In particular. So this has become a fixture where people like to come. They like to support local businesses. People are really aware that local businesses have been through a very, very tricky time in the last few years with COVID, with lockdowns, with, the pressure that retailers are under and so on and so forth. They like to support local businesses. They like to support small businesses, and they want to buy something unique and different.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to that in just a moment. Jill Wedge is my guest in the studio, and as always In Conversation, we like to give our guests an opportunity to pick a song. So tell us what your next song is, Jill, and what it means to you.
So another band that I got into in the 80s, which means a lot to me, is REM. I remember going to see them, as I did the Smiths, actually. And this track isn't one that's particularly known, I would say, although it was very, very popular, is The One I Love.
Turn up the volume. Here it is. Welcome back. You're listening to Ashdown Radio. My name is Boo Prince, and this is In Conversation. My guest in the studio, Jill Wedge, and we are talking about pop-up markets. Jill is the founder of the Crowborough and Uckfield pop-up markets, and we've been talking about just the kind of unique products and I guess the emotional connection that people have to buying artistic wares and crafts and so on. Jill, let me just get straight into the nitty gritty here before we run out of time, and because I could talk to you for hours. So with the pop-up markets, I'm assuming that if people would like to actually hire a table and participate in your markets, I'm assuming that there's a fee that they pay to participate. How does that work?
Yeah, so I pretty much price all my markets the same, which is £25. And they get the table set up and they get the chairs, and then anything that they want to bring in addition to that, they just need to make sure I'm aware. So, for example, sometimes people want to bring clothes rails or an extra stand. As long as I've got room, that's fine. They're all payable in advance. I do a little deal for regular stallholders at Crowborough. But that's pretty much, unless I'm trying out a venue, what people pay. We have got some new venues coming online.
Great.
This year. We're also doing a fantastic day at Highgate Nursery, Blossom and Bean, up in Uckfield. So we've got a Mother's Day Spring Fair happening on the 14th of March up there. And there will be some more news. All the information is on Facebook and Instagram.
Brilliant, brilliant. So people can search for it on the Crowborough website, Crowborough Facebook page, or the Uckfield Facebook page. I know
It's all one Facebook page, Crowborough and Uckfield Pop-Up Market.
Pop-up
Same
markets.
with Instagram, yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the kinds of products that sell the best, what sort of things are typically most popular with
It's really
customers?
interesting. Yeah, one thing I will say to people, if you have never done a market before, you will be nervous. That's fine. Nobody's expecting you to be mega confident, but we will look after you. I really want to make that absolutely clear, because we are a really friendly bunch. We will look after you. Do not expect to have a cracking day on day one. Okay, so a lot of people come and they say, I didn't sell very well, and they don't book again. And then the following month, somebody comes up and says, oh, there was a lady selling handbags. Where is she? I really wanted to come back and book them. It's like anything. If you go to a shop, you might see something and then think, don't need it today, but I've got a birthday coming up next month. I'll buy it next month. So don't expect to have a fantastic day. You might do, but don't expect that. You do need to build up your reputation and your presence.
Right.
So that's the first point I would make. Things that sell well are things that people can't do themselves.
Okay.
Or can't get from somewhere else. So foodstuffs.
Yeah.
Now, we don't sell anything that can be bought at our pop-up cafe. We always have a pop-up cafe, and if we're at Uckfield, they've got their own restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you could sell things that the pop-up cafe aren't selling. So you could sell sweets. You could sell fudge. Our jam seller is one of our best-selling stalls. He makes fantastic jams and chutneys. It's a reasonable priced purchase.
Yeah.
It's something that's a consumable. Consumables are always good sellers.
Because people are going to come back. Yeah.
And they make lovely gifts. So
Yes.
that sells well. If you are arty, people are not necessarily going to buy a piece of art as an impulse purchase. So they're not going to rock up and say, I love that piece of art, but they will remember you. And they will also sell things that you make from your art. So you might make small prints, or you might make cards, for example, or you might do commissions. So that would be my advice for artists. By all means, bring your art. It doesn't mean we're going to sell all of your pictures in one event. Things that sell well are things that people don't know they needed. So that have caught their eye, that are well made, that are different. So if you make things out of resin, there are lots and lots of people that make resin items. Make something different that nobody else makes. If you make jewellery, again, I could fill the hall with jewellers. I try and have a few jewellers at each market, but that are different.
Right.
So one might do pearls, one might do, gems, one might do something else. Try and make something that nobody else makes. Just because somebody else successfully sells a product doesn't mean that you will. And somebody else has already filled that niche. Try and make it give something of yourself into what you're making. Make it to a very good standard and make it a little bit different.
So when you talk about putting something of yourself into it, make it a little bit different, etc., what I'm hearing underneath that is that all of us like to buy the story, don't we? We like to buy something that when someone walks into our house and says, that's really different. I've never seen whatever like that before. And maybe it's just something like a coaster, that the person who's bought it can say, oh, yes, I found it at the craft market, and this was made by a lady who was born somewhere else, and this is a traditional design in her culture, or whatever the case may be. But the point is that bit of a story.
I think that is absolutely spot on. A lot of people don't make enough of their stories. They really don't. So we have a lovely lady, and she won't mind me giving her a shout out, who keeps goats.
Yes.
And makes things out of the goat wool.
Milk?
Wool.
Oh, okay.
Fur.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it on a goat.
Yeah. Goat. Oh, yeah. That's a question. Goat fur.
If you do something that's a little bit different, make sure people are aware. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person that comes to your stall, you have to tell your full story to. Have things on the stall that tell that story for you.
Signage,
photographs,
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
something in the name of your business that tell a little bit about your background. And as you say, it might be that there's a cultural aspect, or it might be that you make something with products that you've sourced in a very environmental way, or they're recycled.
Yes.
So have a story about what you sell and make sure people are aware of it. So it's something to set you apart.
I love that. And I think that you have given us some really, really valuable tips here. One last question before we run out of time is in terms of things like seasonal products, do you find that people who sell the same products year in and year out do best because of consistency, or do you find that there is a bit of boom and bust and it might work better to have a bit of a seasonal range as well?
It does vary enormously, I have to say. I think you need variety, so you don't want to be selling the same things every single month, because if somebody comes and they've bought that, you've got nothing else to offer them.
Right.
The most busy time there is in the calendar for markets is obviously Christmas, and some people only take a stall at Christmas, and that's fine. But if you have something that you can think about changing seasonally, I think that's a really good tip.
Okay, excellent. Jill Wedge, I have absolutely loved talking to you. I could carry on for hours. There, I think
We'll do Mark 2. Interview Mark 2 in a few months' time.
In a few months' time. I think there's a lot to mine in the conversation. But for all our listeners, I really, really hope that this has given you a little bit of inspiration. And I hope that it's a rocket under your chair to get up and book a market stall and share your beautiful work with the world, because, you know, it's a gift. It's an absolute gift to share your craft. Jill, thank you so much for your time. And your final song.
Well, this could encapsulate my journey with the pop-up markets, actually. It's the Beatles, one of my favourite all-time bands, and it's The Long and Winding Road.
Thank you so much for your time.